So listen, congratulations, bravo. It was entertaining, the comedic timing, I loved it. There were surprisingly dark, sad moments. I thought it was just what we need for right now, you know.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
This is your second time working with Michael, right? You worked with him for your directorial debut. So how did this script land in your hands, you know, a few years later?
Me and Michael Testone worked together a lot for a number of years. It just so happened that All at Once was the first project that got made. But shortly after that, we had such a good time doing it. Everybody wanted to do something else relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And I had had this sort of idea in my head for a long time of a story about two brothers that was sort of, it was sort of a Shakespearean idea. I wanted to deal with something in the world of betrayal, but in the crime world. There's a movie called Mikey and Nicky that Elaine May directed. That's one of my favorite films. And in it, John Cassavetes and Peter Falk play best friends since childhood, but they sort of work on the outskirts of a criminal world and things go wrong and there's a betrayal element. And I love that film. And so I wanted to do something within that space. And I had just been trying to knock it around and stuff. And then I kind of brought it up to Mike, and he also liked that space and kind of went off and did his thing, which is what you see as Clover. And I think it's still sort of Shakespearean, but different in a sense that I think it's ended up being more Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, as a mob picture, where you have these two fools kind of whose fate is being written and they have no idea.
Let's talk about this cast, okay? You got Ron Perlman, Chazz Palminteri. We love Tichina Arnold. We know her very well. Did you have these people in mind from the beginning? Were there switch ups? Were there early conversations?
In regards to Chazz and Ron and Tichina I know from a long time ago, although we've never worked together. And a lot of the other cast are people that I've worked with in one capacity or another. A lot of them are in my first film, All at Once. And I kind of believe in the fact that you can't buy chemistry, you know, and certainly on movies, you have a very little amount of rehearsal time. So you have to hope that there's a lot of stuff built in when you show up, you know? So as much as I can, I try to do that. In the case of Ron and Chazz, I had not worked with them before and I did not know them personally, but they were on our lists of people that we thought would be right for that role for sure.
Right.
You know, and it was such a joy to work with them. And, you know, I like to build a repertoire as I go along. So I'm hoping that we work with them again. You know?
It seems like it's becoming sort of a family affair of people like you and Michael and obviously Nicole, who is from the first film with Mark. So hopefully we'll see sort of an Ed Burns kind of thing where you keep on working with the same people a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, if you go and watch All at Once right now, which is our first movie, which I believe is on Amazon and Hulu and wherever else, you'll see a lot of the same faces, and you know, we like to do that. So yeah, I'm constantly trying to build the army, so to speak.
As a director, I think as a filmmaker, you have an affinity for New York. Obviously, go Yankees! I see that, and you're from New York. Are you in New York right now?
I'm not in New York right now.
You're in Los Angeles?
I'm in Los Angeles. I go back and forth, but I'm born and raised in New York City. Yeah.
Rainy day Los Angeles. So you probably have an affinity for New York stories. Do you think that you will do something for the Los Angeles landscape? Because I know New York is a romantic kind of thing, not in the romance kind of way, but in the way of filmmaking, like Woody Allen and whatnot. It sort of brings humans together, you know, less interaction here in Los Angeles. But what about a Los Angeles story?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, I've been watching movies since I was a little kid, and you know, so many movies that I saw as a youth were shot in Los Angeles. And so, you know, it's funny because like my impression of this sort of American experience was always through the lens of films that were shot in Los Angeles. Like I always of high school as being like whatever high schools that they shot these movies at in the 80s in the valley, and a lot of times that's what I'm seeing in my mind, is the Los Angeles sort of landscape and environment. So I would love to. I think Clover isn't, although we shot it in Buffalo, New York, it's not location specific. It's supposed to be sort of any East Coast Rust Belt sort of downtrodden, timeless city. We have other projects that are all over the map, to be honest. I mean, I really would like to work in Japan as
Oh,
well.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Trying to figure out ways that I can do that because I really like that landscape. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've explored New York a bit now. Certainly All at Once was specific to New York City and Buffalo. And, yeah, I would love to branch out. I'm in post on a third film
Okay.
called Exploited, and that'll probably be due out in the next year. And that we shot in Kentucky, and is sort of like any college campus anywhere in the U.S.
Did you direct it?
I did. I directed it. Yes, we're in post right now.
Directing the films that you're in, is that your path right now?
Definitely. I still act. I've been an actor for 25 years, and I enjoy it. I mean, my simplest answer to these questions is always that I like to work. So, I like. Oh, if an acting job is going to present itself to me, I'm going to take it. Just as if a directing job. But overall, I would say at this point in my life, I do appreciate directing more because acting wasn't really the path that I chose. It chose me. Mm-hmm. It was something that I was interested in, but I had a mutual interest in other facets of the arts, like visual arts and music. And so for me, when directing movies and certainly indie films, you have a hand in all those parts of making the film. And that's really more inclusive of the many facets of the arts and my interests for me. Right. I get to utilize my knowledge and experience in music and my knowledge and experience in visual arts, be it in the music for the film or the production design or the art direction and so on and so on.
Yeah, you want to be a versatile artist. And you can see that in the movie, I think, has that sort of, and I know you spoke about sort of your influences, but the 1970s, like 1960s bad guy chasing, good guy kind of thing, where, the boxes are moving. And the music was very vintage for me. I think we can use that adjective. So, so was that all you?
Mike wrote a script that also we wanted to make sure things were timeless, that, yes, there's the use of cell phones, but they're older model cell phones, they're not smartphones. And so, we don't know where in the 2000s we might be. And for that matter, we have 70s cars and CVS pharmacy and McDonald's and, these things. So it's sort of, hopefully, our intention was to make it timeless. And then from there, yes, you go, okay, well then if it's going to be this timeless vibe, then the music should be sort of timeless and reminiscent, but but also current. And so that's kind of what we did. Yeah.
You and Mark, I love that chemistry. As a director, how much improv was there? I'm sure it's a question you get, but how much did you steer away from the script? Because it seems like there were probably moments where you probably had to stop because you were laughing so much.
There definitely were. I think the end scene for me and Mark was one of those. We were very excited about that scene and rehearsed it a bunch and tried to punch it up a little in rehearsals. And then when we finally got around to filming it, I mean, we were looking so forward to it, and we just had a lot of fun making that scene, and there was a lot of stuff. But overall, I think most of the film is really the script. But however, I come from an improv background, and so when rehearsing and then even when shooting, I like to give the space for people to try anything and everything. We may not use any of it when I get to the edit, but at least it's there, and it becomes more about all those in-between moments, those moments in between the words, which we know are just as important as the words, right? So,
What kind of director do you think you are? If you can.
What kind of How
Yeah,
does
I
that?
mean, people are always, they're like, are you an actor's director? Are you a director? Do you, you know, especially working with people like Ron Perlman and whatnot, how do you, did you have a goal as far as what kind of leader you wanted to be on the
Sure.
set?
I mean, I think that like most people know if they look me up and they're going to work with me that I'm an actor for a long time. And so, but to say I'm an actor's director would take away from the fact that I have an aesthetic and an interest in aesthetic,
Yeah.
visual, auditory, all of that. So, what kind of director am I? I don't, an overall director, I think I'm somebody who's trying to cover all the bases and has a clear cut vision.
Yeah.
The thing about directing is it's a funny experience because I always liken it to like when you're a kid and you're in the playground and like one kid has an idea for a game and somehow conveys that and everybody falls in line with their imagination and is playing this game by their,
Yeah.
these rules. It's the same thing. I have these moments where I'm like, these people can't see what's in my head,
Right.
and like somehow at a certain point you're like, I know I'm not conveying this so specifically that there, it's just something happens and people are able to, and I think that has to do with like more than your specificity and what you're telling them, but like um in how prepared you are and the vibe that they get from that.
Right.
That will help people to be comfortable and fall in line and listen, right? Like I think everything is about listening.
Yeah,
So.
of course, it fuses and mesh, and that goes back to the chemistry. So did you have a favorite moment with Chazz and Ron?
Ron played a really big trick on me. So he got in and we had him for 1 day.
Mhm.
And I got to work in the morning and I said, where's, they were like, let's rehearse. And I was like, okay, where's Ron? They were like, oh, he's in hair and makeup and he wants to talk to you. So he has like, I mean, we've edited it down, but he had like basically a 7-page monologue that we shot,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to see, and if you're an actor, that's a terrifying thing. It doesn't matter if you're seasoned or not. Like having to say all these words and nobody to say them off of, and it's alarming. So I went to see him in the trailer, and he was like, I was like, "How are you doing? How are you feeling?" And he was like, "I'm not feeling great." And I was like, "What's wrong?" And he was like, I don't have it. I don't have it memorized or anything." And I was like,
Crap.
"Oh," I was like, "Okay." I was like, all right, now from my experience as an actor, I kind of know what to do. So I was like, all right, well, look, I was like, we'll shoot it in pieces. We'll shoot it, phrase by phrase if we have to, and we'll cut it together and it'll be fine. Like we'll take it piecemeal by piecemeal. And I was like, let me get you somebody to sit with you and run the lines over and over again. And, we'll do some cue cards if we have to like refresh you, and I'll be right there. And he was like, okay, cool. He was like, thank you. So, I was like, look, you have a couple hours before we're up and ready to shoot. You need to rehearse, so just do your thing. Okay, cool. So a couple hours go by, we're up and ready. He's now on set. He's just sitting off to the side. Hi, kitty. And,
Yeah.
and I'm like, how you feeling? You want to try? You want to at least get the first part? And he's like, okay, sure. And I'm like, cool. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, basically, I'm going to shoot the rehearsal just because. Why? Maybe we get a piece that works. So we roll action. He does the entire 7-minute monologue perfectly. Perfectly. So
At
he
what
was
point were you like, wait, he knows the whole thing. We have to just keep rolling.
me and my DP were looking at each other like, is he really going to go through the whole thing? Like he seems to have it. We're like, just keep rolling, keep going, And yeah, and then I was like, all right, cut. And I was like, you hustled me. You straight up hustled me. Straight up.
A favorite mob movies?
Mikey and Nicky is a real sort of quirky, not your typical mob crime film. So that's a big one for me. And Midnight Run is a big influence on Clover. And Midnight Run is not necessarily predominantly a mob film, but it involves people dealing with the mob, a mob accountant. So that's a big one. The Untouchables is a big one for me.
Of course.
That whole movie, I think, is a masterpiece. Everything about it is a masterpiece to me. I can watch that movie over and over and over again. And then, I'm a big Scorsese fan. I would say Taxi Driver is my favorite film. That's by no means a mob picture, but Goodfellas and Casino and even The Irishman, I think, are just pure brilliance. And, and then, The Godfather and all that stuff. But, there's a lot of quirky sort of exploitation films from the 70s that have mob stuff that I really like, that I grew up watching, that are influences for Clover too. But too many to mention. Definitely Across 110th Street is an amazing film.
Okay.
So
all right. That's for the watchers, for the readers. Okay, got it. You've been in the industry for a very long time. Is there something that you would like to tackle? It doesn't matter if it's acting or even art direction or well, let me ask you this. What's the next thing you want to tackle?
Well, Exploited is coming out next year. And that's a horror thriller. Again, I think Clover is a certain kind of culty, throwback film, and Exploited is another kind of culty sort of throwback film. It's like an erotic horror thriller set in the webcam fetish world. Mm-hmm. So that was fun to do because I grew up loving horror films. Love to work in more horror. I really enjoy that space, and sort of like even the creature arena, the monster arena, I really like. But I really want to direct television. Like I said, I like to work and I like to be busy, and making movies is wonderful and I will never stop. But television is kind of great because you get to go in and try to help better something, and then you get to step out, and so you can kind of flirt a little more as opposed to
sitcom or series, really.
Well, I would do comedy or drama.
Okay.
I know sitcom is a very specific format. It's multi-camera, so that's like a thing unto itself. But single camera comedy or drama or dramedy of any nature. And so I'm trying to crack that nut right now.
Great.
Yeah.
Bring us. Why don't you just bring us a horror series too?
That would be really great.
Apocalyptic COVID-19 kind of thing.
I'm sure that as we speak, there's a number.
I know. I was like, I'm sure somebody's doing something. Really, it's unreal. Obviously, the industry has taken a beating. Things, productions are on hold. Everything is at a halt. What, as a creator, what advice do you have for filmmakers, for Joe down the street who's got his iPhone camera or whatever? How can people stay creative? What's your advice for them?
I mean, there's so much we can do at home. I think it's a really good time to be a writer, more than anything. However, if you've got an iPhone or a phone, these things shoot 4K.
Yeah.
And the newer ones have a wide angle lens that you can switch to, and it's really got everything you need. I mean, and you could be making little shorts at home and posting them in 1-minute segments to Instagram and, getting followers. So I think there's a lot of creative outlets right now. I mean, I think this is, as heavy as it all is, I think it's a good time to be creative. And, certainly for me, I'm used to being a sort of, unemployed artist or self-employed artist. So I have, I'm used to having to make my daily schedules and figure that stuff out. So some of this is not as new to me, but I think that if it's new to you, the best thing you can do is embrace any sort of creative outlet right now, because you have the time, I mean, I'd be surprised if people didn't have the time to take out a box of crayons and draw something,
Yeah.
Make a storyboard for a film if you don't want to shoot it on your phone and that's not good enough, draw up the movie in storyboards.
There you go. Storyboard from Johnny Abrahams.
Google images and take references, I mean.
Yeah. Be creative. Get creative. I know a lot of people are just sort of, like this right now. So
I would say get out of the news cycle and get into creation of some point. I
do agree with you. Well, thank you so much. John or Johnny, what do we want?
Informally, it's Johnny, so I'll say Johnny. Okay.
Done. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the
Thank you.
time. And again, congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
it was fun. I enjoyed it. Good Sunday
Thank
night.
you so much for having me.
Thank
Stay
you.
Watch
Bye.
Clover, available everywhere.
Yes,
Bye.
everywhere.